Yes.
Yeah, I'd be happy to explain what's at your seats,
Thank you.
commissioners. Good afternoon. We have a very short agenda, but wanted to go in a particular order given the number of guests that have been invited today. But you'll also find at your seats another copy of the budget document, and under presented, it says updated with corrections. So we'll spend a little time after we hear from our volunteer fire departments orienting you on what those corrections were. They're very minor. Most of them were dealing with the table of contents. If you notice, those weren't always aligned with the right budget pages, so we have a corrected version that should help ease that. So the first item on your agenda was the volunteer fire department proposed tax rates. That came up at your last work session. You wanted to invite them here today to get a better understanding of what was being asked with the increase in their fire tax.
Well, let me start out with, I cut Sheriff Johnson off last night and allowed the chair of the school board to continue on, so I need to find out, am I under arrest or?
Not yet.
Okay. Thank you for your understanding. You want to just call these as they're listed?
However you'd like to conduct the meeting, sir.
Is that under here?
Do you need a list of them, or? Oh, yeah, if you don't mind, Susan.
Yeah, absolutely. So commissioners, before you this afternoon, you'll also find a packet concerning our volunteer fire districts. On there, you have each district listed with their current tax rate, their revenue neutral rate, as well as inflation neutral rate, I'll get that out. Their proposed tax rate, their district valuation, as well as the value of 1 penny. So that you can see the differences of what 1 penny represents for each of those districts. Also behind that is the packet that we received from the volunteer fire districts, which will give some explanations as to what their increases are. But they are here today, and you can call upon them however you see fit.
Let's just go down the list. 54 East.
Yes,
You want to come forward?
Chairman, are you just looking for an explanation of the increase on their tax rate, or did you want to give them some additional direction?
Let me just announce, I'm sure you all want to go dramatically below the amount of you were receiving last year, right?
we are.
Yep.
I don't think we have a post for 54.
Yeah. If you will, board, do you have questions? State your name and the fire district, and just give us a little background of where you were and where you want to be.
All right, my name is Steve Couturier, Swepsonville / 54 East Fire District. So you'll see me on there twice.
Right.
We did drop from a 9-cent tax rate to a 6-cent tax rate. And there's some conflicting numbers because our numbers were actually updated as of April 14th. We were initially working off of a set of numbers provided on February 10th by Finance, and they were updated on April 14th. We held all of our official business meetings for approval of the proposed 6-cent on April 3rd and got all the signatures from our outside board, inside board, and such. Looking at the 6-cent across the board for both departments, we're actually a quarter of a percent above revenue neutral. I believe on one case. Let's see here. So revenue neutral for Swepsonville is 0.0575. We're proposing 6-cent. Revenue neutral for 54 East is 0.0681, and we're recommending 6-cent. So we're less on one and a quarter of a percent on the other. When you run the numbers, if we go revenue neutral per the April 14th set of numbers provided by Finance, that budget combined would be $1.5 million. At the 6-cent rate, we're at $1.437 million. So we're actually less across the board.
Board, do you have any questions?
What's,
Mr. Turner?
what's the need to be above revenue neutral for Swepsonville?
The only justification for Swepsonville would be the competitiveness in our employment packaging. We're constantly evaluating where we sit across the county with neighboring jurisdictions. And we're not at the top, we're not at the bottom, but we definitely have vacancies. So myself and the board are constantly looking at ways to entice people to come to our department. And that extra, if you want to call it that, is to increase employment package benefits and things like that.
How many employees do you have?
Staffing at Swepsonville, we have two 24-hour positions, a paid chief, an 8 to 5 position. Right now, we are two 24-hour shifts vacant and projecting a third vacancy by the end of the year. So if anyone knows, and got a lot of people in this room that's probably looking for applications. There are none. Nobody wants to work. But we've had one vacancy since last October, another one since April of this year. It's not new in the fire service, but we've got to start enticing people to start applying for our positions.
Thank you.
So,
I have a question.
Yes.
You talk about these positions. Is this all you got for your fire department, or do you have volunteers?
no, we are a combination department. We have 52 people on roster, which includes our paid staff as well.
Okay, so without the volunteers, it just wouldn't happen, would it?
No, absolutely not. And we have a strong volunteer pool.
Awesome.
We match, not to boast or anything, but we match a municipal department on a structured fire response.
So just like law enforcement, DSS, EMS, you too are struggling with getting really good quality people to come in as far as paid positions.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Turner, did you have other questions?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, Mr. Carter.
54 East and Swepsonville, are they a combined department? Is that, what, two
Yes.
different tax districts?
They are two separate tax districts, one response district.
Can you say that again?
Two separate tax districts, one response district.
So
Yeah,
you
we
pull
have
from
one
both
fire
if
station.
there's an issue in either?
Yes.
Okay.
54 East is Swepsonville's substation, in all reality. But we have two separate tax districts.
But this would it'll equal the tax rate out in both of those? In both of those
From an
taxes.
operating standpoint, we combine the two for our operating budget.
I see, okay.
The state would just, like you said, just equals it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes
And
sense
Mr.
to me.
Carter, you were recognized.
Right.
You have other questions?
Yeah, I just said, you know, it just seems to equalize it out for the two districts, for the same department, basically.
Yeah. Mr. Turner, Mr. Lashley.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you for being very conservative in your estimates versus the revenue neutral rate. You guys did a good job.
Thank you.
Ms. Thompson.
I just want to thank you for always showing up.
Thank you. Are you in our district?
Whitney, but you're
Okay.
all amazing.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I don't have any additional questions either. When you pull the two together, you're below revenue neutral
Yep.
as a combination.
Yes, sir.
And you were serious about cutting the tax rate. I was surprised. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Altamont ISP. Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing? Ed Lipscomb, I'm Chief today of the Fire Department. So when we got our budget package, our revenue neutral rate was, 0.89 cents. The inflation neutral, correct me if I'm wrong, unless Susan, I might have an older paper, 0.93. Our board had met with the budget, again, no opposition from the outside, and voted for a 10-cent tax rate. Some of this increase, we did pay off a truck this year, 6 years early, out of reserve money, with a savings of about $24,000 to the taxpayers of our district. We did also buy a new truck. We are a little bit behind on truck replacement. Fire trucks are expensive, very expensive, pushing $800,000 right now. Ladder trucks are in excess of $2 million. The truck payment that we're looking at is around $91,000 ballpark. You know, fire equipment, these guys will tell you, we have seen price increases quarterly at least. We beat a 8% increase on our fire truck, which was about $80,000 by a week. We had a AFG regional grant, 5 departments in the county were a part of, that came through our department. I priced, I just had a quote done for just our part of that grant. 25 air packs, the prices increased $82,000 in 12 months. So, you know, what is inflation? Our department has spent right at $40,000 this year in truck maintenance. One valve on a fire truck, most of them have 4 or 5. Parts was almost $700, and it was 8 hours of labor at $115 an hour. You know, we try to be good stewards of tax money. I'm an open book. You know, I encourage the public to come in and ask questions. I have a copy of QuickBooks at the station, and anybody in our district can come in there at any time and question any bill that's paid. Again, like all the, I'm speaking for myself, but, you know, gathering information, you know, over the last little bit, nobody wants to do this job anymore. I've had a position, July 30th will be a year that has not been filled. We've had one applicant that wasn't qualified. And we're, between 2 people, I've spent $20,000 just in time and a half this year. You know, these guys are getting burnt out. It's harder and harder to find people. It's harder and harder to stay competitive. You got, I mean, we're probably close to the bottom as far as base salary on a starting position in the county. Our benefits package makes up for it. The benefits package with the salary combined, you're probably talking right around $59,000 value. You can't get people to work. You know, you hear days where stations are going unmanned. You know, it costs money to staff these stations. It costs money to have proper equipment. You know, we was talking out on the sidewalk, fire hose. 150-foot section of fire hoses went up $100 in the last year. We got 14,000 some odd feet of fire hose. So, happy to answer any questions you got.
Let's start on this end.
Oh. This may, I don't mean this to be silly, but the fires that you go to as a volunteer fire department are no less dangerous than what a city goes to, right?
Same thing.
The victims that you serve and rush into a burning building are no different than the ones in the city, right?
Probably a little more dangerous because we've got less personnel.
Right. So, the key to volunteer fire departments is they're spread out all over this county to cover all those areas of what the city can't do because the city's constantly
Yep.
going out themselves. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lashley.
Let's see, I only got one question. You mentioned it earlier, I just wanted to ask.
What are you thinking about that?
I got it right here.
Mr. Stevens, can we, yeah, we have all kinds of fractions of a penny. I assume we really need to be on a penny as opposed to fractions of a penny when we set a rate.
No.
I don't think so. No, we don't.
So it doesn't
That's
matter.
No, correct.
All right, thank you.
That question.
And one other thing, you know, not to interrupt, you know, looking at, and I'm glad Susan printed out what 1 cent brings. You know, you can't compare any one fire district in this room to another. What a penny brings us and a penny brings, you know, Swepsonville or Mebane or, you know, any of these departments. If you look at those numbers, there's big differences. You know, I think one of them, a penny brings 22,000, where a penny on another one brings 129,000. So there is no comparison to what one rate is versus another. It still costs to operate.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, you're fine, you're fine. I just have one question. You mentioned earlier about, you had a public meeting on, March 20th.
Mhm.
How many people showed up?
Other than the board and the fire department, none from the public.
So how can you say that the public didn't have any, I mean, the reason why they didn't say,
I mean, if they didn't show up and
so you take
oppose
that as,
anything,
so you
you know.
take that as like they, since they didn't show
Yeah.
up, they didn't?
I mean, we've had people in the past that have showed up and opposed,
Okay.
you know, and when I opened the book and, you know, showed that transparency, it stopped, you know, and
All right. I just had one question, Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Nothing for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief.
I don't have anything.
Your past rate was 14 pennies per hundred. Revenue neutral is 8 and 67/100ths, and I have a problem with that. How in the world, as a closing attorney, do you start with all those fractions? If you're doing a real estate transaction or pretty much anything else. I understand legally we can split pennies.
Wow. Never mind if it's on.
But in reality, you heard the answer. Oh, sorry. And so I would encourage us to go to at least a round penny as
They are
opposed
at
to a
10.
fraction of a penny.
I don't believe you can, John, just based on the math. I don't think you can.
Yeah, that's what they're asking.
Right.
Yeah. They're asking it even 10 cents is correct. Revenue neutral is 8 and 67/100ths of a penny. Justify why you should not go to 9 cents as opposed to 10, just rounding off.
well, the biggest thing is that we took on, you know, $91,000 in a new truck payment and the increased cost. Just on truck maintenance this year, we're 216% over budget on truck maintenance. That, you know, and that's coming out of something. That's gotta come out of our reserve money. We've spent $171,000 this year to pay off that truck we had a note on. Plus, we accelerated another payment last year. So your $200,000 we took out of reserves to pay off that truck, because we knew we were getting, you know, another one.
What is your reserve currently? Your reserve fund?
As of 12/31, which I disagree with this, but, 666,000.
All right, thank you.
And, you know, I'm sure that Becky over here at Cobb office will tell you, we do things that most people don't. We have stuff planned out, turnout gear, air packs, radio replacement. Every year, we're putting back money and evaluating cost to replace those things over that period of time. You know, we don't have a general fund or anything that the county's got kind of sit back from. You know, what we put back is what we put back, and it's all earmarked and it's all in the budget package with explanations on what each account is.
I don't have any other questions, board, any other
Can I
questions?
just ask one thing? You mentioned that you had gotten a grant. How much was that grant?
804,000 and some change.
And did you keep all that money for yourself?
No, that was, so we had tried
did you do
for,
with it?
I had tried for a couple of years, you know, to get our department a grant. We knew air packs were coming up.
Right.
After the second year of getting to the funding part, funding running out, we decided, you know, there was 5 departments in the county that were on the same timeline of needing replacement. So we did a regional grant. It all came through AO, but it benefited us, Fawcett, North Central, Snow Camp. Is that all of them? Yeah. Pleasant Grove. We were awarded that. It did take us a little time to get all the stuff in, probably 6 or 8 months due to COVID and back orders and whatever, but that 5 departments total benefited in the county for that. And that was probably a lifesaver to a higher increase in their budget.
So if you hadn't have got that grant, all 5 of these guys, girl power, all 5 of you, where would you have gotten that money that you needed?
We'd have had to take
do
out a
these
lot,
things?
I mean, literally, we had some money put back,
Okay.
but it was nowhere near enough to do that. I mean, you're talking I think it was $177,000 was, for 25 air packs. That was our share of it, well, our portion of that value-wise. What we paid out of pocket for that was $16,000. So it was they funded 90%, we funded 10%. And each department was different in how many they got, but, there again, I'm speaking for myself, but most departments were in that crunch that I understand, that they were gonna have to take out loans or increase tax rates,
Right.
you know? And when you take out loans at 3 and 4% interest, it costs,
Seems like the story of first responders
yeah.
across the board. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. E.M. Holt.
Good afternoon. My name is Luton Megan with the Holt Fire Department.
Do you need to answer that call?
I think we're all right. The original revenue neutral tax rate that came out on February the 10th for the Holt Fire District was .0792. After our appropriate meetings throughout our board and our tax board and our fire department membership, it was voted on that is the tax rate that we stick with. Those were all. The last meeting was on March 22nd, 2023, and that's when we voted on that .0792 tax rate. And then on April 14th is when the appeals were not as much as you guys had anticipated, and that's what brought that revenue neutral rate down to .0766. But since we had already voted on the .0792, that's what our budget reflects.
But you were okay at that point in time with revenue neutral?
We were. That gave us just enough to accommodate, just like you've heard everybody else here say today, staffing. Our part-time pool was very low, and we had to build that up. So fortunately, we were able to raise our part-time pay, and that helped us accommodate that goal.
Well, I know personally you guys have fish fries, you have, when I used to live out there, I cooked a lot of fish and a lot of chickens.
Those days have come to an end, unfortunately, for us. We don't do any fish fries or anything like that anymore. Just we didn't get the result out of it that we were looking to get. So.
Any board member have a question?
Do you need the additional revenue above the current revenue neutral?
Yes, we do. That's what we were able to accommodate that part-time pay pool with, as well as we're looking at building a new station to accommodate, because with our volunteers, we're not as fortunate. Our volunteer pool has dwindled very much after COVID. We just don't have very much response from volunteers. So, to accommodate that, we've had to go to more staffing. And with that, our station has become a lot smaller. We're running out of room to store stuff. So that's something we're looking into in the future. We're looking at land now, and that's also helped with starting that process.
We actually moved the station.
No, we're probably going to look at keeping the station that we have now and moving our headquarters towards closer to Guilford County line. on 62 somewhere. We're still in the process of looking at land in that area.
How much land do you have? Do you have enough to add on to where you are currently?
We do not. We have just under an acre where we're at now.
Yeah.
There's not much room to grow.
We used to use that for the Board of Elections. May still use that.
The Civitan building behind us, they use that building.
Have y'all seen any interest out of the fire academy that's through ABSS?
So I actually, I started. That's where I got my start. Was ABSS Fire Academy. I may not look it, but I'm only 21 years old. So I graduated in 2019, and I was able to get my levels through that. And I'm a product of that. So I think it's a very good thing. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to find a teacher the last year.
Didn't he move to Guilford
He
County?
did. So that program is no more right now, but I think they do want to start it back up.
The younger you start, the better it is. Law enforcement, everything, because the world has such a view of these positions that it can really take away from it, which is ridiculous.
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
pretty awesome.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, East Alamance. Nice try, but no, anyway.
That's commitment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Jamie Joseph. I'm the Deputy Fire Marshal of the City of Mebane. It's Captain Greg Massey. The City of Mebane obviously provides service to the citizens in the City of Mebane, but we also have a rural fire protection district outside known as the East Alamance Fire District. Our current tax rate is 10.5 cents. We've requested a 7-cent tax rate. The revenue neutral number was shown at 6.99. So like Mr. Paisley said, we like the round number, so it's basically the same number.
So I've been right one time, no,
That's right.
last night we had a regular meeting, I'm not sure about last night.
As you all know, we're slightly over the revenue neutral, not by much, but the City of Mebane, and I'm sure everybody in here knows, has seen tremendous amounts of growth. And that does extend outside of our city limits into the Rural Fire Protection District as well. So trying to manage all that growth, continue to grow the department, to manage the call volume and the divisions that the fire department now provides to the citizens is definitely something that's difficult to do. So that's what our request is.
Any board member have any questions?
Did you have any I'm sorry.
No,
Did you have any opposition to the 0.07 rate at your public hearing?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We had just came from another meeting, and one of the things I heard in that meeting was that there are right now 30 new, I think it said 30 new
Yeah.
subdivisions being planned in Alamance County. I think we wanna hear that more frequently so we can keep up with it better, cause I was surprised at how many that number was, but, my suspicion is that when we see a new subdivision go up, the people that are buying homes in those subdivisions are typically have a job, sometimes not even in the county, so they're not volunteering to the fire department.
That's correct.
So we're growing mass, but we're not expanding our volunteer base. And I think that's a problem we're gonna have to deal with. I'm not sure how we're gonna deal with it, but you obviously can't be building homes in areas and not have people out there to protect them. I guess I'm gonna say something, and I'm just curious to see how many people are even remotely interested in it, but would there be any interest among volunteer fire departments in participating in a countywide fire service for the rural parts of the county? Okay, I don't see any, so.
and the chair is frowning with that question.
I add something to that. So there was some discussion a couple of years ago about doing something similar to
Right.
Guilford County Squad 50. But there again, the county didn't have any interest in putting any funds toward it. You know, it was gonna have to be shared.
Well, that's the problem.
Between all these departments, you know, when we're already strapped for money.
Well, you guys are doing a super job anyway. why fix something that's not broken? You need more money,
They need more
But-
workers.
yeah. Any other questions?
I just bet you all pray nothing breaks. I'm serious, cause I mean, I added up as like almost $1,000 to fix a valve. I mean, that's serious. I know how much everything is.
Repairs are expensive.
It's just ridiculous. Everything is,
We overspent our maintenance budget very early in the year this year.
yeah.
Now, do you cover all of the city of Mebane?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Alamance came to me early and wanted to know about increasing their tax rate and so forth, and I'll talk to them in a minute. And I suggested that they have a city fire department, and they absolutely said no. Does Mebane have any interest in having a city fire department?
So we do have that. We're a municipal fire department, and we provide coverage into a rural fire protection district known as the East Alamance District.
Okay, so
Yes,
this
sir.
covers the areas outside the city?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Answer that question.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? We thank you.
Thank you.
Eli Whitney, 87 South.
Yes, we have a printout to help explain our justification. My name is Deborah Holt, and I'm the treasurer at Eli Whitney Fire Department. Our fire chief is on vacation, so
Thank you.
as all the other fire departments have mentioned, our expenses go up year over year. We had the trend in 21 to 22, 22 to 23. They're up. The major increases were in the repairs, fuel, utilities, things that you can't really control. Like other fire departments, we've had a struggle with full-time firemen and with getting volunteers and with part-time firemen. And a lot of it's the competitive pay. We had to add a fourth full-time person. We were operating with 3 full-time people. We do not have a paid chief at this point. We've tried implementing incentives for volunteers to run calls, but unfortunately, you know, our fire district, everybody has a 2-income family where everybody works. So volunteers are pretty much nighttime. We only have 22 on the roster. And our call volumes have gone up. Plus, the calls are 70% EMT or medical calls versus just fire calls.
Right.
So it takes a much higher certification, you know, whether you've got a full-time person or a volunteer or part-time, you need that EMT certification. Somebody mentioned the housing developments. We do have 3 additional in our district. They're listed on the paper. We have an aging fleet of vehicles. We did purchase one that was delivered in late June of last year. And I will apologize, when we submitted the budget, it looked like we were asking for a 358% increase in note payments. If I can just explain that better. That the 80,000 that we used to pay off the Eli Whitney building, that next year we used that money to help buy air packs, and we were lucky enough to get 91,000 in Amy Gailey funds. Otherwise, we would not have been able to replace the air packs. So that 80,000 will come back in to pay the note on the new fire truck. And as you can see, of all the vehicles that we have, 7 of the 10 vehicles are more than 20 years old. So we've tried very hard to phase in. We have multi-year planning so that, you know, we see when we can pay one thing off so we can start to buy another. Also, you know, we kept an 8-cent fire tax rate for 23 years without asking for an increase. And then finally, in 2020, we did ask for an increase. And I know we are asking for more than our revenue neutral, which was 6.9 cents, I believe. We're strapped
The
for
bulk,
people.
the bulk of our budget increase has to do with salaries. Trying to ensure that we have full-time help, hired help, because of our waning volunteers. You know, all of the rural fire departments were volunteer. That's how they were started. And for the most part, you know, there were a lot of farmers, and people
there now.
were present in the community where the problems were during the day,
Yeah.
and that was the backbone of the fire department. And you know, it's a wonderful dream, but it's not real anymore. And so we struggle with, from the sounds, what we've heard so far, we're struggling with the same thing that everybody else is as far as qualified help. And the greatest increase in our budget had to do with hiring and being competitive with our salaries. So and our volunteer money as well.
Any questions?
Was there any opposition to the proposed tax rate at your public hearing?
No, sir.
Thank you.
When I was little, if there was a fire call, there was this loud siren. And everybody, even people on the moon, could hear it. It was amazing. And the whole world stopped, and you would just watch everybody get in their cars and go. It was just the community. I mean, that's just what we are as community. It's pretty awesome. You certainly saved my dad's life a lot of times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I also have to say, Pam, I remember that too. I grew up in rural Georgia. And fire
Big
call-
deal.
When there was a fire out, everybody rolled out.
Yeah.
Even if you were a teenager, you rolled out to help if you could. So.
I helped put out fires, grew up in McLeansville on a tobacco farm. So, I understand.
I have to say the work ethic of a volunteer fire department is exemplary for us all to follow. Because you go because you want to, not because you're made to.
We thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Elon. I just talked about Elon, and it was your mayor that called me.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Like the Mebane Fire Department, we are a municipal fire department that covers district out into the county. Our revenue neutral rate was 0.0793. The numbers that the county gave us for inflation neutral was 0.0846. Our approved rate after our public hearing and our town council voted was 0.0865. The reason for the increase was we saw quite a bit of increase in our diesel cost, gas, power, things like that. Plus, we've been on a plan to hire more personnel, but we've been doing it incrementally. So starting in 2022, we hired two, one in July, one in January, and the next one was up for this budget. We didn't ask for an increase from our county side in 2022, but we are asking for a little bit to cover that third person this go around.
Mr. Turner.
Was there opposition to your proposed tax rate at your public hearing?
There was not.
Mr. Carter. Mr. Lashley.
No, I don't have any questions.
Ms. Thompson.
You're Elon. Do you answer calls in all the dorms?
Yes.
Is that part, does Elon University help you with budget?
They give us a small amount.
They're currently giving us about $83,000 a year.
Does that kind of equal out?
Sorry, no, it does not.
Bless their hearts, they probably got it. I'm just curious how you cover all your surrounding areas plus the university. And they're not a major part of that, because college students will leave a hot plate on occasionally. I'm just curious.
I would say frequently more than
Yeah.
occasionally. It is a challenge at times for the small town of Elon to have to cover buildings like that. But
And question, and when you go to, say, a dorm, and there's a crisis, a medical crisis, is your EMT out of your area going to that also?
yes,
Okay, so that's, okay. Young people can make some bad choices. We all do and have. Okay, I'm just curious. I'm just curious at that amount from the university. Okay, thank
I
you.
will add, Rich Roden, I'm the town manager in Elon. Of our new valuation, about 42% of our value is non-taxable in Elon, between the university and Twin Lakes and a couple others. So we are heavily dependent on, the local taxpayer to fund everything. Those larger institutional commercial entities do provide a little bit, but not nearly what they would under property taxes.
Well, and
Yeah.
they're buying up as much land as they can to develop the city. I mean, it's a university, I get that, and it's absolutely beautiful. We got a school out of that, because Elon, I know they wanted Elon Elementary off compared to all the beautiful, stunning architecture buildings they got. I mean, everybody benefited from that. I'm really curious and amazed that they're not a lot more financially supportive when you've got all these students that may need your care as well.
And Elon is giving you less than 1 penny's value with their donation.
Correct.
Mr. Lashley?
Yeah, I just found one thing I just wanted to ask you about quickly, because it seems like quite a bit of money here. I'm looking at your financial information. The cash and investment balance as of 12/31/2022, am I seeing this correctly? $21 million?
I'm not certain what you're looking at. That could be the towns, as opposed to the district, the fire department.
Well, I'm just curious why it's in here, if it's
'Cause
separate.
It's a town department.
Right, but you're a different department than, say, the police station or the parks, so I'm just curious why these numbers are in here. That's a lot of money. $21 million, it has to be for the town.
Yeah, that's,
But it doesn't tell me what your financial statement is. What's your financials, how much money do you have as a fire department?
they have what's.
That's a legal question.
so are you asking how much revenue we generate from
No.
the county side?
I'm looking at strictly everyone else today gave me a cash and investment balance of it's 12/31/22. And the reason I'm even making this statement here is most of those numbers between 350 and 600,000. I just looked at this one, it's 21 million, so I'm trying to figure out why.
I will say, the fire department doesn't have any cash.
You don't have any cash on hand? It always comes through your city?
Yes.
Okay,
Even the donations that are received come to the town.
okay.
They don't come to the department.
All right, so, okay, I think I understand.
And I misspoke. I was looking at Elon Whitney
Okay.
for a penny. So Elon does a little better than I projected.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. So
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I understand. Your department covers all of the town of Elon, all of Elon University, and then a portion outside of the town of Elon city limits.
That's correct.
And there's no municipal fire department in the town of Elon.
Yes, we are the municipal fire department. We are contracted with this rate for the area outside the city limits.
Okay, so you receive money from the town of Elon for the service to the town of Elon.
No, the town of Elon receives money from this tax district to provide coverage outside of the city limits.
Right, but you receive a portion of the money that you receive is from the town of Elon.
Yes,
to
actually,
cover
right,
the town of Elon.
Ultimately, all of it is.
yeah.
What does that mean? I'm confused. I'm very confused about this structure. I just don't understand.
We're a different category than
Right, and I'm
these
trying to
fire
understand.
departments.
I don't get where you get your money from.
So the municipal budget, we come out of the general fund for the municipal
Or
budget.
like the city department.
Okay. But the money that you're asking us for is just for service to the area that you cover outside the town of Elon. Is
That's
that,
correct.
It's revenue from that district.
I see.
not- we-
Outside the town.
That's
Correct.
outside the town.
I see. In the county, outside the town.
And we may spend more than that providing services, and we don't break it out that way. We know numbers of calls and things like that, but, that's part of the revenue that comes into the town that funds the fire department.
Right. Did you
To help
receive an
clarify,
increase?
Let me ask this question, Mr. Turner. You have a northern section and a southern section that is not inside the city, correct?
That's correct.
And how much in the northern, how much is not inside the city?
So we cover Glen Raven, Flora Avenue. We even still cover some of the Glen Raven buildings on Webb Avenue. We go up Shallowford Church Road, Elon Ospey Road to a certain distance until we meet with AO Fire Department. On the south side, we cover Huffman Mill Road all the way to the lake.
I'm sorry, Mr. Turner, thank you.
Has the town of Elon finalized its budget for next year?
It is in its final form, it'll be voted on next Tuesday.
Okay, and are you receiving an increase in funds from the town of Elon?
Yes.
Yes.
Enough to cover the area that you cover outside of the town of Elon?
The revenue that is projected from the area outside of the town of Elon is part of the revenue that supports the fire department.
Okay.
So if we were to revert to revenue neutral, it would leave a hole in our budget,
I see.
the way it's put together right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other
One
questions?
more thing, 421,000, blah, blah, blah. What is that? What is that dollar? Is that what you're requesting?
So for the county funds
Right.
that go into the department, that's correct.
And 80 of that, not in that, is only what the university covers.
So our total budget is not the number that you see. The number that you see is what the revenue that we're generating from our county district.
Not,
Actually, can I jump
Okay.
in here real quick?
help me, because this is really starting to tick me off.
So the number that you're referring to, the 421,514.
Right, yeah.
That is the district's valuation. That
Gotcha.
is taxable.
Gotcha.
So that is not showing what revenue would be generated, just showing the breakdown of what their district values are. Then the value of the penny is basically take that penny, multiply it by their tax rate, and that's gonna give you their generated revenue, which is in your commissioner's
Okay.
book.
Just off the top of your head, can you tell me what that amount is for the county outside of this university that you're getting?
The university's in the town, but I'm trying to.
Pretend they're not there. And you are going all over this place doing
About
what you're.
368,000 is what I'm carrying in our budget as revenue from the fire district, less some of the expenses that we pay back to the county.
316?
Interest and fees, so it's a couple thousand.
Would you say you have more calls outside the university or inside the university?
So we continually go back and forth with numbers depending on the time of year.
I
But in
bet.
general, the Elon University is our biggest customer, and we run more calls to the university than we do the town in general, or the outside district.
Do you meet with the university about this issue?
Regularly.
That's a deal. I know they
And they don't have to pay sales tax on things that
they
they
don't
buy.
pay property tax either, 'cause they're nonprofit. Okay, that, I'm not gonna lie to you, and I'm not gonna beat up, because I think they're an amazing university. I'm out kidding, I praise them, but I think this is extremely unfair.
We
When
are
you've
happy
got
to have
that
them.
right there to help you make a difference for the majority of your calls, whatever time of year it is, because I want every student going to that school to be safe.
Absolutely.
But I also want everybody not going to that school, wherever you're going to also be safe. And I know that's what all of you guys in this building do. But I think that's, I don't know,
It's a good deal.
it's like a,
Okay, Mr. Carter.
You get 86,000 a year from Elon University.
83.
I think it's about
83.
83 this year. It's going up 2% a year.
How much do you get from Twin Lakes?
54 or 56,000.
What's your call volume look like there? I don't know, I live near a nursing home out in
Yep.
places other than Burlington, and I hear an ambulance or fire, and a fire truck there at almost on a daily basis, it seems like.
It's roughly around 10% of our call volume.
And your stuff breaks too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We are well over our maintenance budget as well.
So you're just gonna park it, and then when your budget starts back up, you'll fix something else? No. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Kay Fawcett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jimmy Westbrook, Foster Fire Department, Station 7. Our current tax rate was 12 cents on $100. The board met and decided to go with 8 cents, which that reduced it by 4 pennies. Should generate right at 51,000 extra dollars in the budget for this upcoming budget. We have been seeing growth of around 15,000 per year. So if you take 15 away from that 51, our budget's increasing 36,420. With going 8 cents. Revenue neutral was 7.5. Inflation neutral was 0.788. We took the 8 to generate a little extra money. October 22, we signed a contract on a new engine to replace a 28-year-old truck. We signed a contract that was $793,000. Along with the other fire departments, we're trying to do stuff for our paid staff, increase salaries, increase part-time pay to have staffing during the day. Currently, I'm one guy short on a 24-hour shift guy. 0 applications. That opening's been open since October of 22. No one has applied. As other chiefs stated, maintenance is out the roof. So we're just trying to generate a little bit extra money to help us out in the near future. We're almost finished paying on one truck that was bought in 2017. We took $150,000 out of our cash investments and put towards that truck because the board didn't want to have 2 truck payments at the same time.
Yeah.
Currently on that one truck, we're paying $63,000 a year. With the new truck, that's probably going up at least $20,000 with the truck being so much. And we talk about prices of apparatus. I met with the board in 2021 and we had a price of an engine for $646,000. And October 22, that price increased to $793,000. So it's ridiculous. That's my justification. If y'all have any questions, concerns, complaints.
Mr. Turner.
Chief Westbrook, was there any opposition to your proposed tax rate at your public hearing?
No, sir, it was not.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter. Mr. Langston.
No questions.
Ms. Thompson.
You were part of that grant, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that really helped you guys.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then like your engine that you just talked about, that you waited, whatever. and
Yeah,
it
it's
went up-
28 years old right now. When we get the new engine, it'll be 30.
Okay. You don't wanna rush things. It's kinda like my roast.
Right.
It's the same cow, but for some reason he gets more expensive every week.
Gotcha.
Thank goodness for that grant. That's
Absolutely.
life-saving for you guys,
Yeah.
because you save everybody else's
It was
life.
life-saving for all 5 fire departments, I think.
I just really appreciate the fact you went in together. I wish there was some way that we could apply for all kinds of grants to really team up all of you guys to really benefit you, not just certain times of the year, because there is no certain time of the year that you need something. It is constant.
Yeah, if that grant hadn't come available, just like the rest of them, we would have borrowed the money,
Yeah.
some type of financing, and that'd have been another payment that we would have had to make.
you know, it's something when nonprofits have to incur grants, debt. Because you don't sell widgets or oranges, you don't sell anything, and you think, how in the world are we gonna do this? It's like owning the mafia or something.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
I have no, anybody have any further, we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Haw River.
Hey, my name's Tyler Franklin, Haw River Fire Chief. Our tax rate in Haw River was 13.5 cents, and we are requesting 9.48 cents on the 100. Just to put that in a little perspective, going to revenue neutral rate, which is what's on the paper of 9.1, that brought us about $8,700. The revenue neutral with inflation was 9.48, which is what we're requesting. That brings about $21,808. We had an issue with one of our trucks, which is 31 years old, and it's cost us $12,000 to fix. It's currently sitting in the shop now, and it's been out of service for about 3 months. Right before that, we had another engine go down, so it was actually down to one engine for the town limits of Haw River. And just like Mebane, just like Elon, we are a municipal fire department, so we are split between county and town. And part of my budget does come from the town, part of it does come from the county, just the same. So our justification for the request is pretty much the inflation of working on trucks. Just like everybody else has had issues with truck maintenance, finding people to work on them, the increase in that. We would like to increase our part-time staff as well, to cover us 7 days a week. We currently have 3 24-hour staff people that work a 3-4 schedule, which is most common around here, and we have the fire chief, which is me. So during the day, we're about 3 people plus the volunteers that will show up, and we're down to about 16 volunteers. I will take questions at this time if y'all have any.
Ms. Thompson.
I think I was at your place for the Project Safe Neighborhood. That was a room full of unbelievable people. I thought, golly, I should confess to something. But you're like everybody else with your old fire trucks and
Yes, ma'am.
what happens if you don't have a truck? Who covers you?
You rent one, or like we've
No,
done
no,
in the
no.
past,
What if you go out, you get an alarm, and it won't crank? Who covers you?
we have mutual aid departments for that.
Okay.
That's not what they're for. They're for staffing and helping us with getting extra people to the scene, extra trucks that
Yeah.
the town obviously can't get. But in the case of something like that was to happen, we would have to rely on a mutual aid department. And luckily for us, we're centrally located, so we get Graham, Mebane, Fawcett, Sweps, PG. We got all of them around us, but unfortunately some other departments may not, so.
Because you don't just have one fire at a time, right?
Correct.
That's what I thought. Who fixes these trucks? He must be a millionaire.
There's a lot of places, but we take ours to Fire Connections in Rocky Mount.
Okay. We should be mechanics for fire trucks. I'm telling you.
Mr. Lash.
I have some questions, but I don't know how to ask them.
I'll try to answer them the best I can.
I'll let someone go. I'm just looking at your budget for the fire department for 22-23, and I see a number of 466,518 of the 22-23 budget. If you'll give me 10 seconds, I will know how to ask this question.
Okay.
While he's waiting, Chief, was there any opposition to your proposed tax rate at your public hearing?
Is that it, Commissioner Turner? You good? Okay. Just looking at your 22-23 budget, that
Yes.
I'm sure that's how I'm seeing a 466,518 number.
Yes, sir.
And I'm seeing your manager's recommendation budget, 529,375.
Okay.
I'm just I see that the council hasn't approved this yet. Can you tell me?
So, yes, manager's recommendation is 529, so they have we were running behind on our budget process. They're set for the 19th to actually accept this budget.
June 19th.
They're gonna have their public hearing then
So
for
does
the
your-
budget.
Does
itself.
the Hall River manager, she's pretty much okay with this 529, 375 number for you?
Sean Tenser and Leslie Gonzalez has worked to get to that number, yes.
Okay.
They're
So I can
the-
take the 529 number as a good, firm number, like that's the number that you're expecting
Yes,
from
sir.
your manager's request. Okay, that leads me to my question. When I look at these numbers and how they're stacked, this is way out of line versus an inflation rate. And I'm giving you an inflation rate of 6%, which is much lower than that. It's basically 5.1. And what I'm looking at is that's like a 20% increase year over year, which is out of line. Just out of line about how other things are going up. I know your salaries are going up.
Yes.
At a 10% clip, so I can sort of see where you would maybe get that 20% number, but even granting you the 10% increase in salaries,
Right.
I just think your numbers just are higher than your peers from other
Right, so
fire departments who've come in.
try to answer this the best I can. We do have that county money or the town money that comes into play. For example, the projected value at our revenue neutral rate plus inflation from the county is 333,353. The rest of that from the 529,375 is
That's the
covered
town.
by the town.
There you go.
We
You
have a
fit it.
2.8
That
district
explains
in the town.
That
In the
explains
town.
it.
So,
I'm good. Thank you.
yep. You good? Any other questions?
Mr. Turner,
No, sir.
Mr. Carter, I have none.
All right,
Thank you. Okay, North Central Alamance.
Good afternoon. My name is Joey Green. I'm the fire chief with North Central Elements Fire Department.
And we're also live streaming this. Tell everybody where that is.
North Central Elements is in God's country, as I like to say. It's northern central part of Alamance County, right in between the fingers of the two creeks that form Lake Camac. And if you look at Lake Camac, it looks like an alligator. Our fire department sits right in the back of its mouth. So you pass through our fire district if you go to Yanceyville. If you go, in most cases, a lot of cases, if you go up 62 or Union Ridge Road into Caswell County. Today I'm here to talk about our proposed budget. North Central prior to the revaluation was at 11.5 cents on $100. The revenue neutral rate that was proposed by the county that we voted on the first before the revision was 7.68 cents on the dollar. Our board of directors and our fire department has met, and our board and along with our tax, we went through all the procedures with the hearing, and 9 cents on the $100 we feel like helps us out the most. If you look at our numbers overall, we are one of, if not the lower funded fire districts in the county, just based on our taxable income. We really don't have a lot. We've got farms, we've got churches. We don't have really any big businesses. We don't have any box stores, any mills or anything that contributes heavily towards our tax base. So that being said, we're very much a farm and bedroom community, which makes it a lovely place. However, we still have to meet the same needs as all of the other fire departments and all the other districts in the county. We also have a brand new high school being built in our district, Clover Garden School. Clover Garden High School will be, it's in construction right now, and it should be open sometime in 2024 or 2025. And again, that adds to our responsibility and accountability, but we really are not getting anything financially from them to support them. We had our public meeting on April the 16th with no opposition. We have the same needs basically as my peers have stood up and described. We have our oldest fire truck is a 1967 model. It's an off-road brush truck. But we have an 87, a 97, and a couple of low 2000s. We did just purchase a new fire truck for us in 2022. And the way we were able to afford that was was through savings through over years with our capital outlay. But we were able to find and purchase a demo truck. And that same truck, had we ordered that truck and gone through the same process, brand new and customizing it, we would have spent over $100,000 more, if you can believe that. And it continues to go up every time you call. We have one paid position in our North Central. It is a Monday to Friday position. Other than that, we are 100% volunteer. We've got 27 volunteers on our roster. We have a need to grow our staff. If we look at a 10-year plan, and you look at the growth the county is seeing, it would be reasonable to believe that our district has a great chance of growing, as we have the farms and we have land. And so when we look at a 10-year plan, it's not unreasonable to believe that we would have to ramp up and have more staff, and even around-the-clock staff eventually. There's no way we can get to that with the proposed budget, with all due respect, from the county. Just further justifying our belief that 9 cents will help us. It won't even get us to where we ultimately need to be, but would certainly get us in a better direction. Our building is 40 years old, and we have ongoing maintenance with that. I will say we are a very talented group, as all of my brothers and sisters are. And to answer your question, Ms. Thompson, we learn how to work on a lot of the things ourselves. And when it comes to the big ticket items, we do have to hire that out. But we have learned how to work on a lot of things. And I'll be honest, a lot of the equipment that we have and use is secondhand and has been donated and given to us from other districts in here and other fire departments. I feel like we are very resourceful, and we ultimately do try to stretch and look at each dollar we spend with scrutiny.
Mr. Turner.
One other note, we were part of the grants as well, and I'll be honest, the grants are life-saving to us as much as anyone. We've been benefited from the Amy Gailey and from some FEMA grants. The grant we went in with Station 2 and others, the air packs. We've been able to replace radios and air packs, otherwise we would not have had the funds to do. And that feel like that was heaven sent. That led us to be able to purchase a fire truck that was replacing one over 30 years old. So,
Chief, you got a lot of needs that you listed here in your materials. What's the most important need for you this year? Like, where would you put this money this year?
this year we're with the new truck, we're repair and maintenance. We've got our turnout gear covered and we've got our radios. So this year we're focusing on repairing the building. We've got some building repairs to be made to both the roof and the sides. And then we would eventually have to upgrade our fire department if we were to have around the clock staffing with sleeping quarters and things. Not say that we can get all that done in this, but we would focus a lot of that on the upkeep of our building and getting another 40 years out of it.
So your staffing
Staffing, we have,
later?
well, no, we have a little bit of extra money I put in the budget for staffing, ramping up towards, the idea was that we could pay some part-time help that would help us with when our paid staff is off, and then maybe encourage us to try to delve into holidays, weekends, and maybe even times when we may have the need for an additional man. For example, we have a triathlon that happens in our community every year, and there's certain times when there may be a day that we felt the need to, it'd be safer to have another staff.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Carter, almost everything in your district is residential. Is that correct?
Residential and farms, that's correct. Churches.
I have no questions.
Ms. Thompson.
You talked about Lake Kamak.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
Camp Greenleaves.
Yes.
I went out to their program last year. Amazing, special needs kids. Is that you guys, if there's a call?
So glad you asked. Camp Greenleaves and actually Lake Kamak belong to the city of Burlington. However, we are first response.
Okay.
We don't get any financial benefit from that, but we put the sweat equity in as far as responding and owning responsibility for any scene or any call there. we do have the option to engage and involve Burlington, and Burlington Police and Burlington Fire are notified and dispatched whenever we have that, but they're 15 minutes out
It's all about time.
sometimes.
How many volunteers do you have?
We have 27 on the roster.
That's good for the size.
We are, I feel like we are the epitome of a volunteer fire department.
Probably recognizes the fact that what your demographic is.
We are, and like I said, we don't have any paid staff, and much like others, you know, I don't get a red cent for doing anything. Matter of fact, I spend a lot of time and money.
You get stars in your credit, trust me.
I'm not doing it for that, but thank you.
Me either.
And then one other question about the community. That's a concern I have too. So I think we grow our own is a way, and I don't know how a better way to say that, but I'll say that I'm a multi-generation fireman, and I have 2 kids that are junior firefighters, and a lot of our fire department is made up of multi-generation, and without that, I don't know where we would be.
Yeah.
And if you took that part out of it, it would really be scary. So I'm all for anything that we can do to boast and to encourage folks who volunteer. Even the people, you don't have to grow up here, right? But
Just a question, do you see that the volunteer fire departments will gain any benefit from the new fire training center that's gonna be a part of ACC's, public safety training center?
I'm really not educated enough to officially speak on that. I will say this: this county has a great group of fire chiefs and fire departments that work well together in my tenure, and as far as Burlington, Elon, there are other folks. Pleasant Grove has a train. AO. They all have things that they've burned buildings and training towers, and they all, as long as they're not using it, whenever we have called to ask to use those training facilities, they've been more than willing. Very encouraging. Matter of fact, they usually turn it into multi-company training opportunities. Not sure if that's answering your question, but usually most things that are in the county become somewhat available for us to use. I hope that would be the case.
Any other questions?
Just thank you.
Thank
We
you.
thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Northeastern Alamance. Do we penalize you for jumping up? No.
Yeah. So Northeastern Alamance. Also, we have a name, Pleasant Grove. So we get called different names. So my name's Jason Anderson. I'm a volunteer chief there. Being a volunteer chief with this department, I rely heavily with budget type things on former chief and board treasurer Jimmy Roney. So he wasn't able to be here today. He was doing some stuff with his grandson. So with our former tax rate was 12 cents. Our revenue neutral was 0.0797, and our requested is 0.083. And we had our public hearing on 4/3 and went through the board approval at the next board meeting and had that all approved. What we plan to do with those funds for this year, like some of you asked, was some building, same story as what everybody else is doing. We're dealing with staffing issues. We don't have 24 hours at Pleasant Grove. We have we cover time frame from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. With part-time staff from other stations. When they get off with their 24-hour shift, they come to our station and work through our shifts. Like I said, we cover that from 6 to 6, and what we're planning to do is extend those hours to the weekend now. We only been doing it Monday through Friday. We plan now to do it 7 days, and that's what we want to do. Also, we have, like I said, an old building. We got some quotes on new bay doors. Nobody wants to work on the old stuff anymore. They want to replace them. That's around $80,000. We're also talking about retention. So some of the other chiefs were talking about explorers and junior firefighters. What we're trying to do is make some makeshift accommodations with furniture and what we call house tones, some notifications when we have a call, because we have some younger guys and explorers that are wanting to spend the night at the station. And where we are, we just don't have those accommodations. So we want to use some money to make it, appealing to them, so they'll want to be there and run calls. So that's some of the things that we're planning on doing with the money. Also, we signed a contract for a new truck, just like the same stories at some of the other departments. Trucks have went up. We're replacing a 1989 truck, and hopefully that truck started out is around 690,000, and is went with equipment and everything is pushed up to around 800,000. So I'll entertain any questions that anybody has.
Is there like a fire truck dealership? Like, where is this deal? Where
There's
are you
lots
getting
of
it from?
It's like Ford and Chevrolet, so it's
Yeah.
whatever you can get the best deal on, that will the people that will build the truck like you want it and the needs for your department.
Okay. Is that in North Carolina? Is there one in North Carolina?
I don't think there is one. Anchor Ritchie, they build smaller trucks, but they do. Their specialty is smaller trucks, but they have subcontracted to do some of the larger trucks. Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Chief, was there any opposition to your proposed tax rate at your public hearing?
No, sir.
Any other questions? We thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Snow Camp.
Good afternoon. My name is Franklin Clapp. I'm the treasurer for Snow Camp Volunteer Fire Department. We have a current rate of 12.5 cents. Our revenue neutral was 8.33, and our inflation neutral was 8.73. And we had our hearing on March the 26th of 2023, and there was no opposition to the rate. We chose to go with inflation neutral, the 8.733, and the board approved afterwards and signed off on it. We have 2 full-time paid staff, 24-hour coverage. We're short 1 full paid staff personnel at the moment. We seem to have the same, like everybody else is saying, with the staffing issues. What we're seeing is we seem to be a stepping stone for a lot of young firefighters that are coming out of school or trying to get their start, go to a rural department that has paid, and basically get some time under their belt and move on to Greensboro, Burlington, Chapel Hill, Raleigh locations. So it's always a revolving door when we do find someone. We are the largest volunteer district in the county. We have 1 main station and 3 substations. The reason for the 3 substations was years ago it was decided to try to help all of our community homeowners in our district have a lower interest rate for their fire tax. So by putting in those substations, we got them closer to an actual fire station, which therefore decreased their tax rate for the fire tax on their insurance. We currently have frontline engines and tankers that are over 20 years old, just like everybody else, that we end up doing a lot of the smaller repairs on when we can. Most people in here know Clay Thompson. He's been the chief in the past at our department. And if it wasn't for that man right there, we'd have a lot more expenses in fixing equipment and stuff like that, because he's a guru when it comes to fixing these fire trucks. He's been doing it for years. We have a lot of accounts that we have set up to purchase trucks in the future, so we're setting money aside for trucks, turnout gear, air packs, so we don't run into a situation where we need to borrow a bunch of money from the bank and waste taxpayer money making interest payments on loans and stuff like that. So that's what I have.
Anyone, any questions?
If Sylvan had an issue, elementary school, you guys are it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you guys do the Yale Country Kitchen fire?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, something.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Any other questions? We thank you.
All right, thank you.
just to give all you guys some idea, we have to set a tax rate for both fire districts and the county itself, and have it in place before June 30, or on or before June 30. In reality, it'll be at our next meeting. We've had our public hearing. We've now heard, thank goodness, from all you guys. And really, and when I say guys, I do not exclude females, by the way. So, I have 3 daughters and 1 son. I call everybody guys. But having said that, we really appreciate all of your input. And we'll set your rates when we set the county rate.
Can I ask just a question? When I first got on the commissioners, I brought someone here to talk to our first responders in the city, so to speak, county, whatever, about their mental health and about self-care. What do you guys do for that? Because you're on the front lines just like everybody else. It's really no different, just your zip code. Are you taking care of yourself?
I can probably speak for that. There's 5 or 6 of us. I'll be one of them. I did the 501c3 stuff for it. We do have a peer support group in the county.
Okay.
We saw the need for it. We call, we contact people at the county level, try to get some kind of resources. We had an incident where I needed somebody, to talk to somebody. Made 4 phone calls, I'm still waiting on 3 of them.
Yeah.
So we started a peer support group. We go out to departments that request us. We have a long list of contacts. We do have a clinical person on our group. She has seen several people for free. And we do have outside the county peer support groups that can come in if need be. So.
I'm just checking, because tragedy's tragedy,
Yeah.
and I know you see it, no matter what you do. So,
I'd like to see more support in the county,
yeah.
grant funds or anything to where we can expand that. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's like the volunteer fire department, it's hard to find people that can do that. Take the time. If one fire department has an incident, they call, you gotta get 3 or 4 people together within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taxing.
It goes home with you, so I just want to make sure, because people in the business of taking care of everybody else always never take good care of themselves. They just don't have time. They're too busy saving the world, and many times burnout is extremely serious. So I just appreciate you all. You're like our Navy SEALs when it comes to fire, so.
Do most of y'all have a chaplain within your agencies?
That's what I was thinking,
Okay, county manager?
Are we ready to move on to the next item on the agenda? We have a few adjustments that we wanted to walk you through related to the manager's recommended budget and what's captured in the new document for you.
And I'm getting rumblings from other commissioners that they want to take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
In session.
You ready for us to go over
We're
the
ready.
adjustments? I think
Yes, ma'am.
Susan's gonna go through those about three highlights we wanna bring to your attention.
This is a new book.
This is with the new book, that's correct. But regardless of these changes, any notes that you've made in your existing books, we can use those for discussions today. It's not gonna affect those numbers greatly. First update that we had was for our fire district funds. We realized that there was a clerical error in the format of the collection rate. It was originally budgeted at 99.5%, and we wanted to reflect that at 100%, which is an overall increase of about $3,300 to the fund. And that is reflected on page 57 of your books. The second increase that I wanted to double check with you guys was that on our emergency telephone system fund, we received updated, yes, sir.
Can we go to page number first, so we can go to it?
That'll be fine.
Right, that one was 57.
So if you go to page number 62, and I'm pulling these from our fund summaries.
New 62.
Yes, ma'am. Page 62 as well. All right, so for page 62, it's gonna be our emergency telephone service fund. And we received notification from the state of North Carolina that the 911 proceeds that we would receive from the state was gonna be reduced to $717,593, which they were originally budgeted at $899,380. So to go ahead and get those changes incorporated into the budget without having a budget amendment at the first of the next year, we adjusted the use of fund balance for that fund to be $208,787. There are no changes to their expenditures. That is all revenue.
Can you say that again?
Sure. There are no change to the expenditures. Revenue change is to budget $208,787 of fund balance and reduce the state funding to $717,593.
You said that it's a hit to the fund balance.
That's correct.
Okay. I thought you said no additional expenditures.
It's no additional expenditures.
Just the revenue is short.
It's the revenue will be shorted by the state. Yes, sir. Okay, and then our last update, it's actually gonna be across several pages, because it affects two different departments. But if you turn to page number 54 and 55, that's gonna be our general fund summary expenditures.
No, I thought I did.
So we realized going back
Just
through.
wake you up, Sheriff.
We realized going through that we needed to also include some training pay for our EMS staff. They are required to have 36 hours. That would create an additional expense of $116,901. Then also realized that there was a position in the library for a passport admin person there. So that was a reduction to the general fund budget of $57,189. That resulted in us needing to then budget an additional $59,712 for fund balance to even out those expenses.
So you're taking from the library, adding to the training.
Yes.
Yes, those were corrections that should have been made prior. I had decided not to fill that passport position, I think back in March maybe, and it just missed it in the budget, so we're cutting that one. And the training for EMS has been left out in the past, and I think that's part of the cause for why their budget comes up short every year. So we're hoping this adjustment on the front end will help offset some of that later on.
So this will bring the general fund budget now to $217,792,000. $587,666.
What's that again, 217? Can you repeat that?
Sure, $217,587,666. And after today's meeting, the new updated version will be posted to the website.
So you got a hit and you have you have an offset and a hit. So what's the total offset, what's the total hit to fund balance for those two things you just mentioned?
$59,712.
And when you add that to the 208,787, what's that total?
I'm sorry, add it to which number?
When you add it to the other hit that we just talked about, the 208,787,
267,000.
267.
Round up to 68. Yes, but now the emergency telephone fund does not impact the general fund.
It is not.
It does not.
Separate fund.
That is a completely separate fund
Okay.
in and of itself.
So the only hit to
General fund is the
that
$59,000.
$59,712.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We need to do something with those last 3 digits in that number.
I agree, I agree. Thank you. Just round it up to 70.
We'll add $4.
That's right.
So that reflects all the adjustments that we had to this document. Hopefully, we're on the same page. So the next thing on the budget was just a general discussion from the board on how you'd like to make adjustments to the general fund. And we can pull up a spreadsheet and sort of track those adjustments and then get to a bottom line wherever you'd like that to be. We felt like this was probably the simplest way, so under the target, if you wanna shoot for revenue neutral, we have the reduction that it would require for us to get there. If you wanna shoot for the inflationary neutral, we have that as well, or we can just start listing cuts and see where we get. We'll list those, on the left column there.
Bill, I'm gonna suggest, you and I have talked a lot about the numbers. Why don't you start off on recommended cuts?
Okay, you sure want me to go first this time? I went first last time.
I'll go first if you want me to.
Go ahead. I went first last time. I took a lot of time. And I just still want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to say what they want. But.
The only reason I asked that was because you and I talked more than I
Oh,
had
yeah,
to
well,
anyone.
I'm ready. I just didn't want
But,
to suck up all the air in the room.
Craig, why don't you start out?
Well, it's going to build on what Commissioner Lassie talked about last time, so I think it's keeping with that. First of all, the target number. What number are you using for revenue neutral? Is that a rounded number or not?
It is not rounded. We went with the absolute pure number of 4259.
Okay. If we start with the Davenport model for ABSS, well, let me back up and say that I believe, after looking at these numbers for a couple of weeks, that there is a combination of funds existing in the system now and cuts that we can make to get to revenue neutral. There's existing, I think it's a reapportionment of some funds that I think can get us a long way. First of all, the 5.64 cents that is now allocated every year as a new revenue stream to the ABSS capital reserves, what's that in a dollar value number currently?
Bear with me just 1 second.
9 million something?
We'll say it's
9.2?
$9,334,729.
Okay, and if we were to take out the value of 1 penny, which would be 2.514301,
Yep.
does that leave you with sufficient funds to cover the debt service on existing debt for ABSS?
Yes.
Does it also allow you to cover additional debt service for ABSS should ABS at some time in the future seek an additional 19 million in funds in bond issuance that are not yet realized?
Yes.
Okay, so let's, for the sake of conversation at this point, put 2.514301 back into the county's general fund. Now, if you also we've got $700,843 that are economic development projects that are for the airport, which we anticipate a quick return in allowing aircraft to come to the county, and also about $300,000 for railroad spur in Mebane that we hope is going to be an economic development investment and bring additional revenues with firms who want to use that. If I am comfortable with putting that money taking that money from the general fund and not from current year's revenues, which would also, I think, reduce your number by $700,843. Now, in addition to that, I would like us to do an audit of that in a year to see how much revenue we can actually attribute towards those investments to make sure that we make the right decision. But I think, for the sake of argument here, I would be comfortable using that money as well. The capital plan, we authorized a couple weeks ago a $2.3 million CIP for the county yearly for the next 5 years. I'm comfortable with moving some of the monies from our capital reserve to cover that in the current year, and also eliminating some of the expenditures in the current year and moving those forward to the right to be spent in later years. I think, am I right that there is $11.614 million in current ABS, in current county capital reserves? Access to current in some way, access to that money.
I'm sorry, that figure again?
$11.614 million.
10,654,000.
The 10 million was what we had said we would spend towards the courthouse.
Right.
That was the full capital reserve balance.
But there was also an additional $1 million that we had talked about being available, right?
So that million is
Right.
included in that 10 million figure.
Yeah.
10,654,774.53 is our current total.
You said 1064?
10,654,774.53.
Okay. We talked about an $11 million number. Is that what that number was not correct?
So where the 11 million is coming into play is that in the current fiscal year, we are expected to transfer $1.4 million into the capital reserve fund due to the step down of county debt service. So that's where the additional $1 million is coming from.
Okay, so it'd be possible to use that $1 million in the current budget to further offset the 7.1 figure.
That's correct.
I'd be comfortable using 1 million of that plus the 654,000, which would leave, the 654,774.53, which would leave $10 million in the capital reserves, which we could choose to use at a different point or not.
Right.
So that would be 11.654774.53. That would bring that number down. No? Yes?
I thought I heard you say you wanted to do $1 million.
Yeah, well, I added the 654,774.53 number.
Okay.
And we can talk about, we can bat this around a bit, but I'm just trying to,
Well, I think you did a good job there, Commissioner Turner, finding the $600,000. So I would suggest that we actually, see, my number on that was 800,000. I wanted that capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
I wanted that to be $200,000. I wanted to take $800,000 out of that.
in expenses?
No, just that one. I didn't look at your 654 number. I was just looking at the $1.8 million.
Right.
And what I did is I looked at what you had told me before. I just want to make sure that I have this right. I was going off the penny plan, the 0.96 of a penny for the county, which gives me about 1.525 million. And I was going to suggest, could you use that number that you used the last time? And if you could say yes, then I could take the balance of that and stick it on that number, which basically you did, but you just took the whole $1 million. And all I was suggesting is, like, instead of making it 1.6, make it 1.4.
So there are
That's
two-
just to
two different
give you the
concepts.
number that you needed for the capital improvement plan.
there are two different
Yeah.
things here. So the penny plan, I believe, was used to fund equipment
Yes.
and vehicle
Okay,
type
that's-
things. So that went away.
Okay.
And in this manager's recommended budget, those type of needs were funded with the leftover pandemic funds.
Okay.
I already took the penny
Gotcha.
and appropriated it in the budget.
Okay.
The CIP had a $2.3 million expenditure, which we've now taken out 1.6 million of that to come from capital reserves.
Okay, so that's about I'm looking at $700,000 left over?
And
I guess my question is, would
Sure.
would that be enough to get you done? Because I like Commissioner Turner's number here. I'm just trying to square it off
So,
between the number that I
I
have.
think we need to look at the projects that were being funded. Remember, there's $1 million for ball fields.
Mhm.
So that leaves you very little money to take care of your roofing and HVAC needs.
Okay.
I can do the math on the.
I just wanna make sure we haven't taken the B. Everett Jordan ball field away.
No.
No, in fact,
Right.
this is all just revenue shifting, so
Yes.
there's no expenditure change yet.
Right.
Right,
in that-
but I
in that
think
plan.
what Commissioner Lashley was suggesting would require an
Well,
expenditure change.
well, I'm not there
Unless I
yet.
misheard that.
I'm getting there.
Okay, my fault.
Yeah, I'm getting
Go
there.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah.
I apologize for cutting you off. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Because you're on a roll here. I like what you got going on.
Well, a quick question you just brought up, the, COVID funds,
The pandemic funds.
pandemic funds.
Yes.
They're talking about the federal feds are talking about a clawback, or doing a clawback. Have we committed all those monies so that we will not have to lose any of those funds we have in?
I believe the
I
county
checked with
attorney
Mr.
is,
Stevens, and we are not losing any of the R money.
Okay. We're under, we're, okay.
We're fine.
Good. That was a concern I had, that we had some that might lose.
Although we've not designated it, it's already been paid to us, and they're not taking monies back that have already been spent.
Right.
did we capture that accurately?
Yeah.
Okay.
So far, there's no cuts up there. It's just reallocations of current dollars in the system.
Great.
But if in addition, if we're talking about capital reserve, if you, what's that?
We do need to revise one number, Commissioner Turner, and that is the 1.654754 for the CIP needs. Right now, our estimated balance that we would have at the end of this fiscal year is $1,614,010.
Why don't we make that change?
There we go.
Yep.
Then if in addition, you were to take out, you didn't expend $550,000 of the 2.3 million this year on CIP. That's the part that you would shift. So out of the 10 projects or so, it would be finding $550,000 savings, either pushing something off or pushing a portion of something off, or just moving it even to next July. So I think, let's put that up there and see if that's how we feel about that. But that would be $550,000 in savings, which is an actual cut.
Okay, so a reduction of CIP spending by 550,000.
Correct.
Jessica.
By next July, you mean July 2024?
It means next fiscal year.
Yep.
That's fiscal year.
Say 550?
550. Salaries. If instead of doing a 5% COLA and a 3% merit, you reduced it to a 4% COLA and a 3% merit, that would save $700,000. 770.
362. Plus, you're gonna add. Did you say you're gonna add
No,
merit? You're
I
gonna stay
didn't.
at 3.
Stay at 3.
My bust. You're right. You're dead on.
Can you just say again?
Sorry.
The COLA?
It's a
and
four. It's just a reduction of 1% COLA, which
Okay.
would be a reduction of 748,500.
Yeah. 748.
715.
477.
Okay.
Give me that again, please.
It is a 4% COLA. It's just a 1% reduction in COLA. That's
Right.
the only change.
Right.
But based on managers recommended.
Give me the number it saves.
$748,477.
Thank you.
If in addition you were to obtain cuts in the legal budget of $100,000, Mr. Stevens, how do you feel about that?
I think, well, like I said to you before, it's difficult for us to really know from one year to the next what we're gonna be spending on outside counsel. We're in a somewhat unique position there in that our expenses are dictated by the litigation that comes in, and so we're not always able to plan those out. I will say we have some litigation ongoing at this point that's going to start incurring costs against that outside counsel budget, more over the next year than it has over the past year. But our expenses related to day-to-day costs for outside counsel expenses have come down. So as long as the board is willing to entertain my approach for more funds as needed, if we incur additional costs, then we can sustain $100,000 less.
So let's just put it in there for the sake of putting it in there for a second. So that's $100,000 reduction in legal. If you did a similar $100,000 in reduction in elections, and I understand the elections budget is based on worst case, but how would you feel about the effect of elections on that?
We can gamble that we don't have a second primary.
Right.
And that would pretty much cover the, but if, that we won't know until.
Right.
After March, if we would have that, possibly in May. Also, you do know we get reimbursed for the, municipal elections, which is in October and November if we have a primary. And in the 23, in 21, we received, we were reimbursed for, put the glasses on so I can see here. The reimbursement was from the Burlington primary and then all the municipalities. It was a total of a little over $162,000. So anticipate if we have a primary and then the municipal elections, that much is reimbursed back to the county as well.
So the downside of doing this is if we had too many elections in the year, you'd have to seek some more additional funds.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, we're definitely gonna have the November, we'll
Right.
definitely have the March.
Right.
Question, we won't know until filing in July
Right.
if we'll have a municipal primary. But from the phone calls we've gotten so far and people coming in the office, we are anticipating,
So if you
October primary.
And if you have that, then you couldn't live with the cut?
No.
Oh.
No, what I'm saying is that, those two we would be reimbursed for.
Okay.
Okay, March, we have the, presidential primary. Okay, we will not know till after that if we would have the,
Runoff?
right, the second primary. We can gamble that we don't, the cost, estimated for the second primary is basically around $194,000. No, excuse me, $140,000. So we could, like I said, if we have to cut, if we do,
Right.
if you cut it, and then we do have a second primary,
You'll need more money.
I would need to come to y'all for more money
All right.
at that point.
Let's put a pin in that one. If you cut one vehicle, that'd be $57,000.
That was the sheriff's vehicle estimate for 57, so he has 10 funded in this budget.
Yes. And also, I asked for the positions that we have in the county that are not EMS, sheriff, or DSS that are not filled.
Current
And there were-
vacant positions, yes.
And there were 22 that are not filled. If you froze those for 90 days, well, the passports manager's on here, but you've already taken that out.
I've already taken that out, yes, sir.
So if you were to freeze those positions for 90 days, all 21 of them, what would the impact be?
$284,974.
Can we put that in there?
$284,974.
It's a 90-day. If there are, it looks like there are 2 library 2 positions, a library 3 position, a library assistant 1. If you were just to eliminate or freeze 1 library 2 position out of those 4, what would that savings be? If you were to freeze that for the year?
A librarian 2, $60,618.
Where's that located? Which library?
I think Susanna's prepared to address that.
That's the May Memorial Library branch manager.
Okay.
Are they both that?
There's actually only one librarian, 2 position vacant right now.
We've got 2 on here, both at May Memorial.
No,
No.
we recently we reclassified a librarian 2 to a librarian 1 and filled that on May 16th.
Close.
Okay.
It could be a timing issue.
So we may need to adjust the 284 number.
Right,
So there should be a librarian 3 and then a librarian 2 vacant right now that I know of.
Okay.
So then, and then we need to adjust it a little bit further, because the figure that I gave previously, the 284,000, included the 90-day freeze of the librarian 2 position. So revised figure 284 becomes $269,819. Then if the librarian 2 position were to be eliminated,
Frozen.
that would be an additional $45,464. That would be the remaining 9 months.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Let's put that in there.
It's a big B.
Do we need to have a discussion about what that means to May
Yeah, let's have a
Memorial?
discussion about what that
Susanna,
means.
could-
There are library 2, library 3, library 1. I mean, I don't know what eliminating any of them might mean.
Right.
Sorry. So a librarian 1 is an entry-level librarian position for someone who has a master's degree. In our system, they serve the entire county. Their position travels to all the branches filling their role. They have a specialty such as youth services, adult services, technology, emerging technologies, and they travel to meet and have programs and facilitate the needs at all the branches. A librarian 2 is a branch manager level, so they are managing the staff and the facilities of a single location. May Memorial is the one that's vacant, which is of course the largest facility, houses 35 staff. Also houses a lot of the central services that we offer, like when books come in, they all come to May Memorial and get processed, and then they get delivered by couriers to the locations. So this person manages, the 22 staff that are serving the Burlington and the community, so that myself as the branch manager doesn't have to manage the building on top of that. The librarian 3 position is my assistant director, which is currently vacant because she retired on April 1st. So in the happy world where I have one, that is my sort of like HR liaison, handling the hiring, those procedures, facilities. They supervise the branch managers and fill in when there are vacancies and when there are vacations. The step up from that is, of course, myself, the director. So at the moment with the vacancies, I am also acting as the assistant director and the branch manager for the May Memorial Library. So it's been a chaotic time, but.
So if we froze the library assistant 1, then you'd still have the assistant operations and the library 2 for May Memorial.
Which one is that? That position is not vacant at the moment, the library assistant?
Library assistant 1,
Could be that it's not been processed in the HR system yet.
Okay, that was a reclassification correcting a salary pay for someone, it's not a vacant position. There's a library assistant 2 children's position at the Graham Library that's vacant right now. I don't know what, I'm sorry, I don't know what the delay within the process.
Does that change the 269 number?
Yeah.
Let's change that number to what it would be.
Yeah, library assistant positions within the library are full-time, normally full-time positions that are paraprofessionals. So they, you know, fill 50 to 60% of their time covering a service desk, and then they have supplemental duties such as programming, or usually programming, or offering, running the services that happen behind the scenes.
Okay. The 1033 was reclassed to 1607.
I can't see you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Should be. So can we figure out what that new number is?
All right, so I wanna be clear, what exactly are we leaving in and what are
We're
we
putting
taking out?
back in the library assistant 1, right?
Okay, that one?
Or actually, we're taking it out of the cut. We're uncutting it.
Okay, that one is now uncut, so that would still be a 90-day freeze on the librarian 2 and a librarian 3 position, correct?
Well, I think,
Which is
You-
what you're doing with all the other positions.
well, but for the 269, 819 number, you have to put back in a library 1 who you can't freeze because they're already there.
Right, so I'm just making sure that we're leaving everybody there for the 90 days.
Yes.
So that number is now $282,759,
Okay.
rounding up to $1.
And if you freeze the Graham Library 2 position, for the children's, I couldn't remember, what was that position?
It's a children's programming position, so they do, they're one of 2.5 people that do children's programming for the Graham Library.
Could the other library assistants who are there cover that work?
They've done it short-term, we've never done it for a full year, so possibly, but, you know, it may eventually come up to a problem, but,
Okay. Well,
we've done it short-term with vacancies, but.
let's just leave it in for now and then we'll come back to it. Finally, the last section that I have deals with outside agencies. I understand that Camp Greensleeves is really something that we need to do based upon federal funding or federal regulations on athletics.
Do you wanna answer that for
Yeah,
me?
so the advantage of Camp Greenleaves is that it provides a level of service that we don't provide at our other summer camps. So when someone with special needs would come to us at a traditional summer camp, we are in a position to say, we can't serve you here at this camp, but we have another place for you to go, and it gives us that ability. So I don't know that we have to support it at any particular level, but it is certainly beneficial to have a place to send people that we just don't have the staffing to serve at a normal summer camp.
Okay, so if we leave that in and take out the other outside funding, we'd save $274,000, is that right?
You're talking about the
Outside
Family
agencies.
Use, Crossroads, and the JCPC?
Yes, the JCPC match, which is new, as I understand it. Crossroads, which was originally funded as ARP funding, which we changed in family abuse. If you took those out, it'd be $274,000 in savings, if I'm understanding that correctly.
That is correct, of those 3 line items.
And I thought my number was gonna get us farther down, but I think there've been some changes since I last looked at these, so, I'm not down as far as I thought I would be. But what would that number be? I think we'd be about $300,000 above revenue neutral.
Yes.
Yeah. Part of that is not cutting any of the elections. Is there any other $140,000 for a primary that may happen? I think we probably would need to leave that in there, but is there anything else in your budget that can be tweaked?
We might could be, right now, we have a line item for, an attorney, which we haven't used. You know, we use the county attorney currently, but if the Board of Elections was sued, then we would have to seek outside,
Outside council.
counsel for that. That's $7,000 right there.
7.
Yeah, that we have budgeted in that line item. We have,
Just to speak to that, we've absorbed those costs, and we're happy to continue to do that. They've been good stewards of the money that we've allowed them to use as part of our budget. But just to be clear, also, one of the things that would be frozen, one of the positions to be frozen in your proposal is the currently vacant assistant county attorney position. So I know I had said before that $100,000 wouldn't probably impact our ability to work throughout the year, but if we're gonna have a quarter of our year with that position frozen, then my answer might change somewhat.
Okay.
I've got a couple of things, you know, like, I mean, nothing large, but, the emergency generator, when we get moved into our new building, we have a generator there. That's, there's like $5,000 budgeted for that. There's, you know, some little things like that I could go through, and, when we move the, storage units we use, you know, that's a large part of, our budget, and,
Could we wring 30 grand out of that thing?
yeah, I could do that.
Let's go 30 grand for elections. And let's give the Right Honorable Mr. Stevens 30 grand back.
Wheeling and dealing.
So $70,000 out of legal. And that's all I got.
Susan had a suggestion related to elections.
All right, so I need to get the information from Ms. Hurdle. So right now, there's $100,000 budgeted as a reimbursement from the municipalities based on the election cost.
Right.
Should there be a second election, would we then invoice the municipalities again?
What do you mean by second? We have a.
I'm sorry, the
primary.
second primary.
Okay,
So
we don't
if-
have a second primary for municipal elections.
There is none.
So we'll have the
Okay.
primary possibly, which is in October, just for Burlington,
Mhm.
that's all. And then, in November is the other municipalities.
Okay.
So never mind.
Okay.
All right, just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
I did notice that there was a building rent for Board of Elections.
It's a storage unit, the rent that you're paying.
Yes, we rent about 6 or 7 storage units over, across from the old outlets for our supply, for our
And you will continue
supplies.
to need those after
No, we
moving
will
into the
not.
new building?
All of,
I think we kept
across the
6
street
months.
here, that'll be, everything should be housed at our
That's what I was
location.
thinking we thought would happen, so.
I think we budgeted for 6 months on
I
that
think
storage
so.
because we need some time. They're not moving on July 1. They're
Yes.
moving this fall, and then they might not move the equipment on the same day that they move into the building, so we did give a little cushion there.
And they're going right into elections with the municipal elections.
But we won't have that expense next year, and we've only done half a year this year.
And I misspoke. One other thought I had is we've got a tax appraiser, 2 tax clerks. Do we need all 3? I mean, can we survive if we?
That's a Jeremy question, and I believe he's watching, or I can get him up here to answer that. I don't feel comfortable cutting
Yeah.
that without
Yeah.
that conversation.
He is watching on Zoom,
Okay,
presumably.
he said he'd run up if we needed him, so that's his call to duty.
Additionally, bringing their folks back in the house as opposed to working at home, is that gonna make a difference? in
I'll
cost?
let Jeremy address that. There are a few positions, appraisal positions, that would continue to work remotely. They're not necessarily doing office work, but doing field work. He can answer that for you though.
You wanna pick up where you left
Yeah,
off?
do you wanna, we can come back to the
You wanna
tax
pick up where he
positions.
left off?
No, I want to hear from somebody else.
You all right? we're definitely gonna take the 1 penny away from the, repayment of the bond money with the school system. Did you mention that?
That's the first item on there.
I can't see it.
The good thing about this proposal is, which was important to me, is that, while Jim is looking at that, is that it keeps merit at 3, which is what you requested. It is a hit to COLA by a percentage, but it also keeps the compensation study of $667,000. For January, which is intended, as I understand, to hit hard-to-fill positions in DSS, EMS, Sheriff's Office that are it brings those two up to a market level in comparison to other positions in other counties.
Yes, there'll be an opportunity to review which departments to target first, but that is the concept idea, yes.
The compensation study, give me the amount for that again.
What's included in the manager's recommended is $667,000 with the January 1 implementation.
Now, the catch is, if we do that, then we aren't mandated to change those salaries. But if we do follow the study, it's gonna be a massive
Well, that is actually, the study has started this year. You funded, I think, $45,000 in your current budget. And so what we've done to date is a sampling of positions to give us a number to budget, an estimate for next year. So the full study would need to continue. We've got it funded, but the $667,000 is the implementation cost for 1/3 of the organization for 6 months. So I do want to be clear that next year's cost would be a full year of that implementation plus another, the second third of the organization with the January 1 implementation, and it would grow from there.
She's saying exactly what I want to emphasize. We're looking at massive costs
It's
as time goes on.
Sure.
I don't know what the number for the sheriff was this year. I remember last year, I think it was, when we were budgeting last year, didn't you have $750,000 in the cost to train replacements? The sheriff's office, do you know, have an idea of what that is this year?
I can get it to you, but at this point, I don't know.
I mean, we're spending a pile of money training
We're spending
replacements.
a pile.
Very expensive when we have high turnover, which is what we're facing. I think we're at 19% turnover right now.
It just makes sense to get us in a position where we're not having to constantly refill a revolving door. And I sent Heidi, I don't know, did you share that with the other commissioners, or did the study from,
I
the
did
information
not.
from Burlington?
I did not. Did you want that shared?
I got a,
You sent it last night, and
Yeah.
I sent it to Cheryl from HR just to give me some context on that.
if I send that to somebody, can they pull that up?
Yes, you send it.
Yeah, if you send it to me, sir, I can pull it up. You can
Okay.
email it to me,
I
whatever.
think it'd be something good for us to look at.
While we're talking about that, quick question for Tori. The governing, the expenditures for the governing body and the recommended budget is right at $320,000. Last year it was $295. Do you, the year before that it was $250. Do you know how much the board typically spends on its own expenses? And whether there's slop there?
What page are
Because
you
I
on?
would bet, I'm sorry, 105. I would bet that the board does not spend all of its allocation on travel and phones and, technology, phones, training, travel, professional association subscriptions.
Now, the professional subscriptions and the dues, yes. But all the training budget, we usually don't spend all that.
So could we find $100 grand in that $319,000 budget?
Will you speak to that?
No.
Susan?
No?
I'm sorry, no, sir. No. So actual expenditures so far this year, for governing body is $261,172.96. Where we have seen an additional increase in budget of $15,000 is in our insurance and bonds. So liabilities continue to go up there to have coverage. So in my professional opinion, I don't believe that there's $100,000 there, because then that would bring your recommended budget down to $219,000.
Yeah.
And that would currently exceed your expenses of $261,000.
Are there any savings there?
We could look at individual line items. If I'm looking at last year's budget, there was an original budget of $264,000, and we spent $250,000. So roughly $14,000 was available at the end of June 30th, 2022 of budget.
Got 15 grand?
We'd have to look.
Yeah.
How much
I
is
bet
the
we
cell
can
phone?
find it.
Yeah. So really your
0.5%.
$15,000 is looking at the increase that we had in, insurance.
How much is the cell phone bill?
Bear with me just a minute.
Take your time.
It averages around $400
A month.
A month?
a month.
Is that for commissioners only?
Yeah, just the 5.
Let me warn you, Ms. Stevens, you need to warn us. If we start using our personal cell phones, which we can do, then you're open to a subpoena for your personal cell phone anytime you have litigation.
But just for county stuff, right?
Correct, but I don't think that's the area that the board's gonna wanna cut.
Okay.
Let me ask this. Well, actually, Mr. Atkins is in the house. Do you have an opinion about those 3 tax people?
Yes, with the tax appraiser, that can be cut. That's been vacant forever. We don't have any particular plans for it. With the 2 tax clerks, those are temporarily vacant. As we've moved some people around and we're actively recruiting those positions, we do need those positions.
Thank you. So if we froze the tax appraiser for an additional 9 months, what would that give us?
You want to freeze it for the entire year, right?
Yeah, but I think it's already
Right.
included in the 90-day freeze.
Correct.
So that would give an additional $42,020.
I'll mention something else. I would not advocate this, I don't think, but it would get to 0. And that is if instead of a 4% COLA and a 3% merit, you went to a 3% COLA and a 4% merit. It gives you more flexibility to reward high performance, but it also reduces the raise for everybody else. So that would get you there. I offer it as a way to get to 0, but I'm not recommending it.
In history's past, when they've done pay studies and not followed through, would that be not like that, but kinda, sorta?
The adjustment on the COLA and merit. I would say that the COLA and merit are
No, I don't want
just 2 very different
Yeah.
philosophies for what we're trying to do with our organization. So the cost of living adjustment was to make our salaries more competitive and move the entire pay scale 5%. The merit is a way of rewarding employees on their anniversary. So if your anniversary is June 30th, you're not gonna get anything until June 30th of the following year. That's why it's a little bit cheaper. The cost of living adjustment goes to every position on July 1.
Okay.
and they're just addressing different things. Your merit pay is a pay for performance.
And this is all the agencies
This is everybody. This is your DSS, your sheriff.
that have
everybody.
all these shortages.
Yes, all of the positions would increase by 5%. The starting pay, even if it's vacant, goes up 5%.
That we're having trouble filling.
Looks it's 35 now. I know that, 2 commissioners have commitments at 5:00, so we kinda need to be wrapping this up.
So we need to schedule another work session. Cause I
That
think
sounds like-
we're not done.
Yeah.
Cause Craig's, he's done and there's other, I mean, we're not done, right? Okay.
Do you wanna look at your calendars for next week? We could do,
I'm having a problem finding that attachment that I put you up.
okay, well, we can get that for the next work session. Tori, what would the requirement be for notice? 48. I don't think they wanna do it. Look at next week, the 12th is a Monday.
Can we look at a Tuesday?
Wait,
Tuesday, I was gonna say, looks good to me.
Tuesday the 13th?
2:00.
Let's make it at 6 a.m.
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
The
I
13th
wouldn't
at
be
2.
I'm up. I'm ready. 2 o'clock on the 13th?
Everybody do the 13th.
That works for me.
Huh? 1 o'clock?
Did you say 1?
I'm
What's that look?
checking availabilities.
I'm good for 1 or 2.
Yep, I can do 1 o'clock.
Okay, 1.
Do 1, maybe give ourselves a little more time to work through this? Okay, 1 o'clock on the 13th in this room. Are there any, is there any information you'd like us to prepare for you all?
I got 2 requests. One second.
Okay.
Let me go to my notes.
All right.
We already went over the total number of employees. Just want you to make sure that number is good. You gave me 1040. That's the number I'm going off of. Total number of county employees.
Can you verify for us?
For next Tuesday, or soon
For
as
next
possible.
time, for,
Yeah, just, you gave me 1040. That's the number we're working on. I just want to make sure that I'm close.
Okay.
That's all. The second thing I'd like to ask is is there any way that you can break down in ranges your employees? You can make it 3 ranges or you can make it 4 ranges. As long as you don't make it 5, I'll be okay.
a range of what?
What, however ranges you want to set it up, like, for example, if you have.
Like a pay?
Yeah, like,
Like
let's
pay
say that,
salary?
you want to use a range from less than $50,000. How many people do you have making less than 50,000? Okay, the next range may be 50 to 75. How many employees do you have in that range? And then the next range I would want is 75 plus.
Okay.
Or you choose the ranges. It's not gonna matter. As long as you don't give me 5 ranges, I'll be fine. 4 ranges will be okay. You understand what I'm trying to say?
I understand
Okay.
what you're asking
All
for.
right. You gave me the total cost of those employees. And I got the stuff from ABSS. Oh, Jeremy. For an educational purpose, for people, I've had a lot of people in the community ask me how you come up with revenue neutral number. Now, I can shoot the math through them, but you know how people's eyes glaze over when you do math. Could I get you to explain that to the folks watching today?
Right now, or?
Yes, sir.
Or next
Absolutely.
I knew you
Should I
could.
Step up to the microphone.
Sure.
Yes,
Oh,
please.
wow.
I knew you could.
This is the impromptu public speaking part.
Yeah.
So, in calculating the revenue neutral rate, the key is that you want to get to what you would have had this year without revaluation. So you're not looking for what it was last year, you're looking for this year without a reval. So basically, you're gonna figure out what your total tax base was last year as a starting point. And then what the statute says is you take the average growth each year from the last revaluation and you apply that to last year's base. That gets you to the hypothetical base for this year. And then, of course, you've moved that real property number. So you're gonna find the difference to find, okay, what tax rate applied to the new base with the revaluation gets me back to the same dollars I would have had with that last year's rate brought forward by the average rate of growth year by year. You're just mathematically looking for something that's gonna get you to the same bottom line. And that's your revenue neutral rate. It's neutral in regard to all property. So personal property, business property, the corporate assessment, everything across the board is what it's supposed to neutralize. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I guess what I want you to maybe try to do, and you explained it perfectly, and I hope Brenda appreciates that from you, 'cause I know she's watching today. But I was actually curious about the math involved. You know, a lot of folks thought, you know, you may have to have a whiteboard to make this happen, but I have a lot of people say, how do you come up with that number? And I think, you know, this may not be the right place to do it, but I thought, you know, well, if I talk to Jeremy today, I'll see if I can get him to do the math.
Well, I'll tell you, there is the handout that we used at the first budget session, and it's kind of in a worksheet format. I can provide that and maybe just some notes to go with it, to have a handout or a brochure or a flyer or something if somebody wanted to look through it. And I'd be glad to present it at any time. I do think it's easier, if you want the big concept, I can do that verbally on the spot. But if you want to understand really how to do the math, it's a lot easier with a visual.
Sure, that's what I was thinking.
Yep. Sure.
If you do make something up like that, you can email it to me, I'll just print it out and
I can do it.
hand them out.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just send it to all of us. if
Will
you
do.
will.
Yep.
Bruce, did you have that document available from Commissioner Carter? Cheryl sent it to you.
Find it.
I don't know if we have time to.
It's not on my phone anymore, evidently. Forwarding it, took the document out. That's it.
That was it.
What page are you looking for?
Was there a particular page you wanted us to show?
I think you go back toward the top. I'm trying to look
Right there,
where you
there.
started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
entry level police officer
Right.
one. I think that would be equivalent to our entry level sheriff deputy, and we're paying, what, 46,000?
Correct, 46.
46,000 would be our equivalent entry deputy salary.
46.7, isn't it?
Can I ask you a quick question, just to clarify something? Because I appreciate you bringing these numbers up. Does Burlington, the city of Burlington, do they give their police officers health insurance?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you're required.
Yes, sir.
Does every employee in the city of Burlington get health insurance
Yes,
as
sir.
well? So, well,
But not dependents.
well, they don't work for the city. I mean, it's a great benefit that your employer pays for your health insurance. I can tell you, I've worked all over this country and not one employer's offered to pay for my health insurance except this one. Nobody else has ever offered to do that for me. So it's a gift.
We're required to
Cost the
provide
taxpayers
insurance.
$22 million a year for that gift. So,
The Affordable Care Act is what
a lot of money.
requires that.
I did a lot of research on this insurance. I think I could take the license for insurance salesman after as much time.
Been there, done that. Yeah, that information I thought would be pertinent information for us to look at in light of our discussions for our sheriff's office pay. And I mean, that's just one segment of what we're looking at. I mean, I think, if I remember correctly, a week before last, Greensboro announced, I can't remember if it was Greensboro or Guilford. One of them announced 52 as a starting, and the other one announced something in that same range as the starting. I don't know what Orange is doing right now.
Sheriff, how many deputies do you have? How many total deputies do you have? Not detention center. I'm not.
164.
164. And how many in detention center?
147.
47.
And that 164 is not including SROs. There's 17 SROs as well.
17 SROs.
328 total.
And the 10,040 includes all sheriff and all county employees, is that correct?
1,040 is what he's talking about. That's a number that you shot up to us. last
Oh,
time.
yes, it does, it does.
But all county employees, including the sheriff's.
Yes, we
office.
consider them county employees.
Now, what we had discussed at one point was family coverage, and I don't know anybody that's able to do that. That was gonna be just an astronomical number.
We can.
We can.
You have to
How
raise the
much do you
taxes.
wanna go up on your
Your taxes will go up a nickel at the new rate.
Sheriff, didn't you tell me that was it Guilford or Orange, or Guilford or Greensboro that's providing family coverage?
That's Burlington.
Burlington.
They were supposedly, get,
That should be in this.
Yeah.
There's more than just this piece to this. I didn't get a chance to read it all last night before I forwarded it, but,
So the 5% COLA that's proposed would take our starting pay up to 49,000.
Well, I can probably help out a little bit. I've mentioned this once before, of taking, the only difference I really have with Commissioner Turner is I had, in my, I was only $300,000 off of your number. Was letting the 5% COLA stay and the 2% merit stay, just leave it the way it is. And then take that $3.8 million that COLA cost and divide it by the number of employees. So therefore, your low wage earner will get an extra benefit from that rather than someone on the upper end of the scale. For example, if you're making $50,000 a year and you get a 5% COLA, you're gonna get a $2,500 increase.
Right.
With my idea, with taking the $3.6 million and divided by the employees, each employee would get $3,600.
Sure.
So that $50,000 worker will get an extra added benefit rather than someone who makes $150.
Sure.
So that's
That's
actually,
important.
that would actually get
That's
you a little closer, and I would just suggest, going forward, anytime you give bonuses like this, you could actually help out your lower end of your salary scale.
You could, yes.
Yes, sir.
yeah. Let me say this along those lines, and I think that's great, but some of your employees may have the same rank, but this employee may have been here 10 years longer than this one. Or you may have had a disciplinary action where they didn't get the COLA, not the COLA, but the,
Merit.
and then if you go, and, give them, I think that's sort of unfair. Not that I wouldn't appreciate you giving the money, but the thing is, if I've been here 10 years, he comes in as a new deputy, and he's gonna get the same raise, percentage that I get, that sort of bothered me a little bit.
Well, wouldn't that happen in your, in Mr. Turner's situation? Wouldn't that actually would occur?
The cost
Right.
of living adjustment.
I mean, if you gave
Right.
everybody a 5% COLA across the board.
Sure.
And you didn't take,
It's not about their performance, right? It's about making the pay scale more competitive, moving everybody 5%, because the budget director and the assistant county attorney are just as difficult to fill as the entry-level social worker. So it's just trying to move us to a more competitive position.
I can understand both sides of this.
They're both needed.
Yeah.
We just haven't been able to do it all.
Right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's what the state of North Carolina did under, I think, several of the Democratic governors previously. They froze teacher pay. And I
My
know my
wife
wife
talked to
was
us
froze, for what, 8 years
Yeah.
consecutively? So you were losing the experienced people. Those are the people you cannot afford to lose. Yeah, those rookies, you don't wanna lose anybody, but you'd rather lose a rookie than you would a 10, 20-year employee.
It takes a long time to get to that top. it just didn't happen. And that's a lot of experience and years involved and commitment. And, it seems like sometimes when people make a lot more than somebody else, we don't think they should. And, I think if you work your job, you know, can't be all the same, because all the job requirements and descriptions are not the same.
And if you keep bumping the low end, eventually you have now the upper end making something comparable to the low end.
It
And that
adds a
causes
compression
additional
issue.
issues.
That's right.
Well, job requirements are totally different.
That's one of the reasons I like a larger percentage of the raise going to, merit, and a smaller amount going to those people that are actually performing, get reimbursed for doing a good quality job. It's more of an incentive to do better work than.
Guys and gals, we have 7 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever.
One more
So-
comment, if I might. The sheriff, I was in the sheriff's office week before last, before I headed out for vacation, and I think it was that week, you lost 4 people that week,
Yes,
if I'm
sir.
not mistaken. Was it 3 deputies and 1 detention officer?
It was, yeah, 3 deputies, 1 detention officer.
I mean, we just can't keep going there. I mean, and it's not just the sheriff's office, it's not just the sheriff's office.
There was a
It's
really
put me in a
big,
bad position, I'm telling you, I'm gonna have to do something with either courthouse security or contracts.
there was a
I don't
really
wanna do that.
big class, a BLET class at the memorial service. Big class of all those future officers. One of them about fainted, bless his heart. How many did you get versus Burlington?
We had got, 2, Burlington got 16.
Okay. So-
They have 15 in the next one the week before.
And the officer that came to my church to help the homeless lady, he moved from Guilford to here to Burlington because of that. And he didn't lose any of his rank or time or anything.
It's a real issue.
You even heard it in volunteer fire departments today. It's everything.
Everything is costing more.
EMS, DSS, everybody.
And everybody's having difficulty getting quality employees.
Should we adjourn to the 13th?
Yes.
Everybody ready?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you.